Hey, welcome to the From the Shadows podcast. I am your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with this week's episode, I want to remind everybody that if you want to check out all of our social media, everything From the Shadows podcast, the easiest thing to do is to go to our website, fromtheshadowspodcast.com. It has links to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and even our Patreon page, where episodes go up early, commercial free, and there's some extra content, which reminds me I need to get the extra content to Phil, our producer, so he can get it up for this month on Patreon. So thanks for reminding myself. So anyway, with that being said, if you have an experience or anything that you want to say to us, share with us. If there's something you want to come on and share with our audience, the best thing to do is you can find me at Shane Grove Instagram or Shane Grove Author on Instagram. Send me a message or hit the contact page on our website and it'll send an email right to me. So with that being said, I'm kind of excited about this episode's guest. I've got a little teaser of some of the stuff he's going to be talking about, and he comes recommended by a previous guest who I believe is Travis, your brother-in-law, cousin. What is he?
Yeah, Travis is my brother-in-law. Travis was adopted into my wife's family when they were real young, so she refers to him as her brother, so I refer to him as my brother.
So most days, right? Most days you claim him as a brother-in-law.
Right. Well, we don't get to see each other much. He lives in South Florida, which is where I'm at now. And we live in North Georgia. So when we get to see each other, it's a good time for sure.
I'm sure it is. So, but yeah, thanks for Travis. He sent me a text. He's like, "Hey, you got to talk to my brother-in-law. And you must have surprised him with some of these stories that you're going to share."
Yeah, I had no idea, really. I had no idea that he had some experiences himself, and they came up to visit about a couple of weeks ago, and we just found ourselves on the front porch talking late, and man, he blew my mind with some of the stuff that he's had happen to him, and like I told you, this is the first time I've ever really talked other than off the front porch about any of the things that have happened to me. So, a little nervous about it for some reason, because it's just one of these things that I don't really put out there much. So yeah, the fact that it caught Travis off guard, isn't surprising. I mean, as much as we've talked in the past, me and Liz have been married for 6 years. And so, just up until recently, that's the first he had ever heard anything about this. So yeah.
Well, I'm excited that you're here to share with the world. No, nothing to be too scared about, but the world's listening. So, so Wes, come on with it. I want you to share with our listeners some of the stuff you shared with me and kind of how you maybe believe your story started.
Okay, sure. My name's Wes. I live in North Georgia. Grew up in North Georgia. I've spent grand majority of my young adult, middle adult life living in the remote areas from Colorado mountains, southwest Colorado, to above the Arctic Circle in Alaska on a gold mine. I've spent a lot of time in the bush, right? And I've had some very interesting experiences, but kind of the first thing that ever happened to me, what caught me so off guard, I had never even considered a paranormal. I was raised in a Christian home where we were at church, and anything paranormal was kind of taboo, I guess, and so we never really went there. But this situation, this experience kind of opened my eyes to an entire different side of reality. So just get into it, right? I was out in a very populated part of town, and I was only about 17 years old when this happened. And like I was telling you, Shane, I've only really got into this story one time. When I did, I was like ridiculed and mocked, and then I was, that was it, right? Like, so. But this is crazy deal that happened. I left the girl's house that I was dating, and it was only like 11 o'clock at night. So it's typical night. You would have a fair amount of traffic. It's a very populated area. I was able to leave with no traffic going out of the neighborhood, crossed one of the main roads that's typically congested, even at 11 o'clock at night. Was able to drive about 5 miles and really noticed that I hadn't seen any traffic. And as I was going, I kept looking, right, to see headlights, because at this point, like, I'm kind of getting a little bit weirded out a little bit, because I'm like, man, this is crazy. Because typically every night I'm driving that road and it's pretty busy. And it's a back road, so there's not any street lights. It's not a busy road that I'm on necessarily, but it's a pretty well traveled road. Well, I got to a point in the road where it kind of forks to the left, and I thought I saw light. So I look in my rear view, thinking I've got a car fine. Well, there's no car, but I noticed like a glow around my car. And as I'm driving, I'm trying to find any good source of that light, anything that could be. And I'm trying to kind of convince myself, like, it's nothing, right? I'm just kind of, but I get to a darker part in the road, and it's very apparent, like, there is a light around me. Like, I'm seeing light, to the point where I actually, in this road, pulled over, got out of my car, walked around my car to see what was going on. What did it have a headlight hanging? There's got to be some good reason for this. There wasn't. Like, and keep in mind, like, at this point, I've pulled over and I still see no vehicles. I kind of just shrugged it off, like, I don't know. I got back in the car. I had about another 5 miles to go till I got to a highway, which is Highway 41. And I'm thinking, from the stop to Highway 41, I'm thinking, surely, by the time I get to Highway 41, I'm definitely going to see traffic, right? Like, I'm definitely going to see traffic. I get to the intersection at 41 highway, and I'm the only car on the road. At that point, I can still visibly see this glow around my vehicle. And so I'm kind of baffled, right? I'm baffled, but I take off, light turns green, I take off, I veer right, and there's a little construction project happening where they're building a sidewalk on, and this is a 2-lane road. I mean, and at this point, it's a side road, right? It's not congested at all. But there's a hard left curve. And as I'm coming in, I'm driving a 98 Mustang. And I'm just doing normal speed limit stuff. And right in this curve, dude, headlights right in my face. Like somebody was in a truck, man, coming around this curve. Flying right on top of me, head-on collision, man, just no doubt about it. I reacted instinctively, pulled the wheel, right? There's a construction zone, so there's construction cones and a drop-off where they had cleared out for the sidewalk. And I mean, I'm just dead, right? Like, I know it. I mean, I'm just waiting to get just crushed, obliterated. and it doesn't happen. And I look up and I see this guy that has avoided the accident and he's fishtailing through the road, catches it, straightens it out, keeps going. I'm sitting in the road just like, again, man, like I am just completely in shock with this. Because, I mean, man, it's hard to explain, but I'm in the middle of this curve, and this guy in a jacked up truck literally has met me head on. Like, it's no way around it, okay? So at that point, I kind of start thinking, well, the light and then this. Okay, something's up, right? To get to my house, I live back in the woods off the lake. I mean, it was dark, right? I pulled onto my road, which was another 5 minutes down the road. And I swear, dude, it was like everything was already dark and it went darker. Okay. It's almost like it went darker. And dude, on everything I love, I catch a glimpse of light out of my passenger window. And I look and I start seeing streaks of light whizzing through the trees, man, to the point where it's like just crazy, like you would see, you know, if you were traveling in a portal. I'm not saying that that's what it was. This was something flying, dude, all around me through the woods. I am blown away, man. Like, I'm speechless. I've never even considered anything about ghosts or anything like this at all. I pull into my house. This is where confirmation happens. I walked in, and by that point, it's like 11:30. My mom is on the couch, crying her eyes out, sobbing her eyes out. I walked in, and she had just like the most giant wave of relief wash over her, right? And proceeds to tell me that she had literally just gotten out of bed and come down to see if I was home, because this was before cell phones. This was before everybody had a cell phone on them all the time. Had no way to get a hold of me other than I think maybe she had paged me. You know what I mean? But
yeah, oh boy, Peach, that's a throwback right there, man.
But so she is just overwhelmed in emotion and has, you know, no idea what I've just experienced at all. And so, dude, my heart is racing, man, just thinking about this, because I truly believe that I was protected that night. I truly believe that the light, the angelic beings that I saw flying through the trees, the whole scenario, just, in my mind, there's no way that it wasn't just God's hand around my car, around me that night. And then when I walked in, and my mom had that, you know, mother, that, you know, her
premonition,
spirit felt,
her,
yeah,
like, you know, that. Okay.
Right.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and it was an emotional time, man. Like, and so it's like I was telling you, I mean, that was on like a Friday night or something. And then Sunday I went to church and was just still like overwhelmed by it. And so I want to like testify, you know, and I get ridiculed and mocked and laughed at pretty much. So I'm like, I'm shutting up, man. I'm not going to say nothing else about it at all, ever.
So in church, they,
yeah,
really,
yeah,
okay.
Just belittled it, completely belittled it. And meanwhile, it's literally changed my life. Like it was the moment where, and even still, like, as far as anything else, I still didn't know anything of, you know, any kind of cryptid or anything like that, heard of Bigfoot or whatever, but any paranormal side had been completely neglected until that moment. And when that happened, I mean, you can imagine, I mean, I was like, it was all like think about. Like it consumed me, right? It consumed me. And since then, it's like, I've just like, my entire reality was shaken that night. And since then I've had some stuff that's just even more and more confirmation on that aspect of life, man. But that was the moment that dude, I can't explain. It's like, you know, when you almost get in a wreck and your foot's shaking on the and adrenaline just going. Well, I literally, whenever I come through the curb and the guy was in the lane, I literally had to compose myself to the point where I really thought for sure, dude, that I was done. Because he was flying. And I mean, there was no time for reaction. It was this, you know? So, I mean, that was the experience that opened my eyes to a different, yeah.
I certainly, I can see why, because if you experience something like that firsthand, it certainly does open up your mind to like the spiritual part of, you know, everything you said you were, you know, went to church and stuff. And here you are, what you believe is being protected by angels, you know? I mean,
right.
when you're telling me that in the white lights, I'm like, gosh, is this where this is going? Is that what he believes was happening? And you know, I've heard other stories like that, and I guarantee you, somebody listening will have the same sort of experience that they've never probably shared too. You know, because there's no other explanation if what
I can't
think of. Yeah, there's no other explanation for how you survive that without a scratch, unless that's what happened. If you know, if those events are as you describe them, and then the fact that your mom kind of had that, you know, moms know stuff. Trust me. Now, maybe it was always somebody calling my mom and telling her, but moms always know stuff. You know what I'm saying?
And that moment really, I mean, my mom and I were close, you know, growing up, but when we shared that experience, man, that's something that really, man, like made us like a bond in our relationship. Like, you know, I had never experienced, even still to this day. Right. And it's not something that we talk about often or, you know, anything like that, but just the emotional and I guess just gratitude, because she was sobbing like she just knew I was dead, man. Like she just knew I was dead. She was sobbing.
And did she ever explain to you why it was? Was it a feeling? Was it a dream? Was it just, you know?
I think it's just a feeling, man. Like I think she just got that just super heavy, you know, and it just oppressed her to the point where she had to check, and then I wasn't home. And so I think she was just totally overwhelmed by it. And literally, she said she is in there crying, praying, you know? And so that, it's just so crazy to talk about it, right? I'm 40 this year, and that was when I was 17 years old. And knowing where in those years, all the drastic lifestyle changes that have been made, had I been able to come up and you know, passionately explain the situation like I did at church, and have just one person that said, "Hey, dude, come over here. I want to talk to you about it," you know, instead of just pointing and laughing. This is Southern Baptist, dude. Like, this is Southern Baptist. This is, you know, you're a nut job, and if anybody else has had that happen, you're a nut job too. You know, we don't. That's not how we believe it. So, but where my life could have, what direction it would have gone had I just had a little bit of, you know,
support or understanding. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is crazy from, you know, the outside looking in at certain religions. Like the very essence of religion is spirits and angels and demons and the Holy Ghost and miracles happening. And so do they think it just happened in that one little time period that got put in the book? In the book? No, it's still happening every day.
Yeah. And I think we were at a time in like our society where I think now, being the internet and being folks like you that get out and really try to bring light to this stuff, it's a different ballgame. But then, 90s, late 90s, there was, I'm sure that I was totally in the dark on a lot going on, but just as a mainstream kind of thing,
Yeah.
you didn't know anything about this. You didn't talk about these things. And, that's why what you do is so important. Like, it really is, because, for my faith, right? For my faith, when that experience happened to me, I no longer believed, but I knew. I knew because I knew there was nobody that could tell me otherwise. Nobody. I don't care how. That was absolute 100% proof. And so, because of that, my faith is like unwavering now. I might not practice it that well and be that great of an example to others, but when it comes down to it, certain people know, other people believe. Well, I can say 100% I know, because, not only this experience, but another couple that just no other way to explain it. And there is no other way to explain it. But
it goes beyond just faith, because you don't have to have faith to you, like you said, it's not just I think it may, I know it is. And that should be like celebrated instead of ostracized.
You would think, one would think, and nowadays, like at, a church that, we may go to, people might see it that way, but it was just, you can go on into the God's plan kind of thing, right? Because like had that sequence of events been received a little different, then you and I wouldn't be sitting here, right? That's kind of how I take my life, right?
But what better way to witness to other people, especially young people, is for you at that age to be able to say, hey, look, this is what happened to me. I'm just some average guy, and this is what happened. And I can only tell you what I experienced. And I just, and that's what I said. Like, all these stories and experiences are important, no matter if it's a Bigfoot or Dogman or a spiritual, an angel type thing, because I think there's a lot of people that get shamed into not saying anything. And then you can't share your experience for other people to learn from or become comfortable with their own stuff, So, and it verifies it for people who are on the search for their own, their own discovery or whatever. Then they know that, okay, I can keep searching. There's something there,
Right.
So, but that's wild. And the real thing is you probably know now with kids, like I know, and I tell my kids, you won't know until you're a parent yourself, right, what she was going through, and what she thought, because probably like, oh, mom, whatever, I'm okay.
Yeah. And that would have been my normal, walk in. But dude, I was so flooded too. I was just so flooded with emotion, and she didn't know why I was flooded with emotion. Because I came in emotional, like, I'm literally. So yeah, man, it's just one of those. I've never heard a story like it. I've never, I've had some other things happen that we'll get into that have led me to listening to podcasts like yours, and I've probably listened to thousands of hours of interviews, and I've never heard anything along those lines. Well, I've heard miraculous experiences for sure, and so, but yeah, that was it, man. I mean, that was what opened my eyes to the reality of the spiritual world that we live in, man. Big time.
Wow,
Big
that's
time.
I'm blown. I mean, I'm blown away because I can totally, like I said, I've heard other stories similar, not exactly like yours, but I could see how, the emotion on your face on how that's still like is just. I mean, like it just happened. Like it just happened.
These things that we're going to talk about tonight literally are branded into my memory, man. Like, so I'm blessed at this time to have a pretty solid memory anyway. But man, these things I can, these are like they happened yesterday. I mean, so vivid to me.
So, okay, so you get through this experience, then what's the next thing that you can kind of tie to the timeline as far as weird things?
So I was thinking about time, since the first time we talked, I was thinking chronologically, right? And that it will. I'm not going to go into too much detail about, in between the lines kind of stuff. I'm not going to drop names and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It was so at that point, I really really dug into my faith and had really gotten I went to a Christian school anyway, Christian high school, and if or if somebody will know that if you're in a Christian high school, does not necessarily mean you're surrounded by you're not in the best company all the time. But I'd really dug in, man, and so I decided that I was gonna write my paper, my final senior year paper, and I kind of told you a little bit about this on it's called Satanism, Witchcraft, and the Occult in America Today. And man, I got so much pushback from the teachers at school, my administrators. I'm talking about they literally almost like kind of begged me not to go down this route and dig too much into this. And in hindsight, I really do believe it was for they were kind of trying to look out for me, not to open myself up to certain aspects of, the world that we're in. But I was headstrong on it, man, because at that point I knew that there was a complete other warfare going on, man, and it was my job to bring light to it in that moment. So I got to digging, man. I got to really digging and researching about just how rampant occult ritualistic practices are in America still today. And at that time, still too, it's like we didn't have that internet. So, well, we had the internet, but you weren't, so engaged in it. Not as many people in, rabbit holes and stuff. But it was my job then, because I'd been shown that, I'd been shown something. So now I have an obligation almost, right? So it led me into a bunch of different books and research topics, and in hindsight, man, I am kind of I see why there was so much pushback because of the effects it had on my life, honestly. Because if you're not, I don't think anybody could totally ever be prepared for these things. But the next thing that happened, I started reading a book that was written by a woman who claimed to be a high priestess in the occult. and was converted to Christianity. So it was ultimately her testimony. But at the beginning of this book, there's this protection prayer. There's this list of spiritual attacks that you're going to be faced with. And she just lays it out there, dude, because she was on the flip side of it. You know, and
she was attacking people.
Right. That's what she did.
Okay.
And so at the time, keep in mind, I'm 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. I'm, you know, on Jesus, man. Like, I'm, you know, bulletproof, and, you know, it's my ego kind of started a giant avalanche, honestly. But I had another tangible experience. So, and again, it rocked my world. So I was working retail. I worked at the mall every day. I was at the mall every single day. One day I'm walking down one of the main corridors of the mall. This is a pretty big mall. You got, you know, so you figure from Macy's to JCPenney on each wing, right? You can see, and it's far. I noticed this dude, man. And as I'm looking, and he's far away, and even from that far, I can see, like, he's a big old guy, man. He's a big dude. And as we start getting closer, I started noticing just how big he is. And this dude is probably 6'8", big guy, long dark hair, got the standard, just like you would imagine, you know, late 90s, the guy with the trench coat and the
yep,
the leather boots, you know, and he's all punked out. And we're walking, we're getting closer and closer and closer, and I notice as we get within, like, where I can see him, he's latched onto me, dude. He's just like locked onto me. As we're walking, he's just locked on me. So my buddy's with me, you know, and I'm kind of like, whoa, okay, whatever, this guy. So we get to where we're passing. We're within a couple of feet, and this dude is literally just towering over me. I'm not tall. I'm like 5'3". This dude is just towering over me, man. And I turn as we passed. He went past enough to be, you know, a few steps past. By this point, by the time I turned to look, and this guy had stopped literally right behind me, man. And when I turned, he was still over me, and I saw this dude's eyes change. I saw him go from a normal human eyes to like a cat-like eyes, where it went from normal to a vertical pupil in one look. And he locked them on me and showed me. And it wasn't like just a glimpse, like a brief little glimpse. Like, it was blatantly in my face. I turned, and I'm just like, to my buddy, I'm like, dude, but he didn't see it because he didn't turn around to look at the guy. So I'm telling this guy that's with me, I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe this. We got to go. This is a, you know, bad deal, big time. So ultimately, the way I see it is that I had brought a lot of attention to myself, man. Like, I had brought a lot of attention to myself. I had brought a lot of negativity, negative energy, spiritual, you know, warfare was hitting me strong, right, in that time, because I was on a mission, right? I was, right? It was about me. But I was at the mall for another 2 hours, right? Couple hours. And where I parked was on like a side entrance kind of parking area, which wasn't, you know, not totally uncommon, but it's not where you're going to pull up at the mall to get out and park. So you have to go out like these little side exits. Me and my buddy split ways. I went to my car. I go out this side exit, and the same dude is standing outside the door. He wasn't right beside my car, but he was about 15 feet away from my car. And as soon as I opened that door, from the moment I opened that door until the moment that I couldn't see him anymore, this dude's eyes, dude, were just locked on me. I'm talking about locked on me, dude. Like, it never happened again. The pupils never changed again. But it was the most intimidating threat that I could imagine in that moment. Because this guy's a foot and a half taller than me, and he's got freaking cat eyes. And the guy somehow knows where I parked out of all the places, and it's been 2 hours. So he's just like, so that was another glimpse, man, into a different reality. But I wasn't as, and at that time, I already knew we're in a spiritual world now. So I can, in hindsight, see kind of like what led to my downfall after that is I got scared. I threw the book away and I acted like it didn't happen. Instead of following through and seeing the story out and hearing the testimony, seeing power in her testimony, I shut the book and I pushed it away and I was like, I'm done. So at that point, this is just played into the enemy, dude, big time. I did literally within a couple of months, I did an about face, and I was like, I'm going to see what this side of the tracks is like over here. And that just led me into a disaster of lifestyle for years.
So it's almost like it's almost like that team said, all right, we know this guy believes one way and feels strong. Let's just kind of scare him a little bit. Let's send our best guy to go scare him.
And that's when I say is my ego, because had I called on the name of Jesus and been in my faith like I was trying to preach, like at that time, then I would have understood, man, the victory's won, right? Like I don't have to fear you. But instead, young me, immature, ego, thought it was something about me instead of seeing it for what it was. So that's something else, right? Like it all just brings it together. Like it kind of highlights that, right? It's like the team knew that all they had to do was just a little pinprick to deflate my balloon, and then they could have their way with me.
They just had to foul you hard going to the basket, and you were like, you weren't going to take 8%.
I'm out. I'm done. And it's crazy, man. And that's where it's like, you can say, you have regrets or what. I don't have regrets because of the blessing that I've got in my life. You're right, in the route that my life has taken to be sitting here right now. But on the other hand, I try my best, like with my kids, you have to understand, like, we're vessel. We're just a vessel. Like, we're flesh and blood, man. Like, any spiritual world that we're trying to battle in, flesh will fail us, dude. The power is in the name of Jesus. And so that's where, that's what I try to teach them now, is that it's not about me and you. It's about the Holy Spirit and the power that He gives us. But I didn't do too well with it back then.
Well, but like lessons like that in life, whether it's spiritual or otherwise, the best teachers are the ones that have failures that they can learn from and then teach a lesson from. And it doesn't matter what it is, but that's the best. Those would be the best teachers, the ones that failed and realize what they did and are able to, help other people, get to the next step or whatever in their journey, whatever it is.
Yeah. So what's scary about?
What's that?
And so that's what's scary about having kids, is because it's like,
Gosh.
you already know what we had to deal with, and now you see this entire different dynamic of life that they're gonna get hit with, and it's but yeah, man, that's it. Try to be the guides.
And they don't want to listen, but hopefully they take a little bit of it, because I think about when my parents tried to tell me, and almost all of it was right. Almost all of it was right. So, so all you can do is just keep up the good fight. So you turn your back. So you turn your back on your faith a little bit. What happens in your life then? That
I literally, I'd grown up on one side of town and had met some people that I had a heart for on literally the other side of town. And so again, in my ego, think that I'm going to do them some good. And so I end up going and putting myself in a situation that I didn't belong in, and ended up finding myself there in a very toxic relationship for years. And ultimately, I mean, it just, that's when my a few more experiences have definitely happened through that spiritual journey. But fortunately, I mean, and man, just the way that I'm sitting here right now is a supernatural experience, to be honest. But I ended up going to the other side of the tracks, man, and just let loose, and thought I'd do me, and that's what led me, like I was saying. I mean, I did, I literally tried to run from different aspects of my life, right? To instead to address these situations, I'm like, I'm just gonna go as far away as I can go, and I'm gonna just disappear in the wilderness, and I'm not gonna have to deal with it. So that led me to the outside of Gunnison, Colorado. I was out there. I got to take people fishing for a whole season and just live, my best life. But ultimately, season's over, come home and get right back to the nonsense, right? And then I go to, seasonal gigs a couple of times, and I'm literally back at it, back to the same place, So it was in one of those, let me think, it was actually like right around that time where it was before this relationship that I got into started. But I had already started, like, just, going out and altering my mind and putting myself in bad spots. But it's when my first encounter happened, where I actually saw what has to be a Bigfoot. I was driving south on that same main highway, Highway 41, in a 1995 Toyota pickup with a 3-inch body lift on it, 31-inch tires. So this truck substantially tall. Not the biggest, but definitely not standard. So again, it's probably about 11:30 at night, and I'm driving south, and there's a creek that crosses the highway. So there's 2 bridges that go across the highway, and instinctively you're going to slow down. Well, I came around one of the curves and end up going into the other curve, and at the time there we had no black bears. There was no black bears in our area, and from the distance that I was at, a couple hundred yards, I saw a mass on the bridge, and it was black. It was dark. It was big, and so immediately, I think it's a bear. high beam it, and even still after the high beams, I'm looking at it and I'm perceiving this as a bear that's eating roadkill or something, right? It's because it's it's just a ball. It's like a mass, like a ball of fur. And I got closer and I started realizing I was like, that's kind of moving a little bit different, a little weird. Well, I got to literally about 50 yards away, maybe even closer. And at this point, like, I'm slowed way down. Like, I'm doing 25, 30 miles an hour. And, it was but in that area on the highway, it's not the most populated area. It's between two towns, and it's, not uncommon at that time for it to be, kind of light traffic. But I slowed way down. High beams on it, and 30 yards away, this thing stands up on his back legs and is taller than my truck. This thing stands up taller than my truck. And at the time, like, I'm still like, until the thing raises up, I'm still convinced it's a bear. And it raises up and it's right on the side of the highway. And I ended up having to like kind of look up at it to see it. And I probably looked at it for three seconds. It takes a step. So, on like the highway, you got your metal guardrail. And on me, it's like, maybe high. But then you go up you're on a bridge, and the bridge has the concrete guardrail. And it's, on me, maybe like ribs, this thing stepped over that concrete guardrail like it was nothing. And it bailed out down this super, super steep embankment down to the creek and was gone like that, just gone. And I tried to, since then I've tried my best to like have a good description of eyes and a nose. And I don't remember any ears. I can't say that. But I was literally face to face with this thing. And it was taller than my Toyota that had a 3-inch body lift with 31-inch tires. And I mean, I saw it full frontal. It had obviously been eaten like a dead raccoon, I think is what it was. And it just stood up, man, and bailed out right down this creek. And there's an old grist mill down at the bottom of that big embankment. And I went back there the next day and like tried to look for tracks. Super creepy place. Just a super creepy vibe at the time. So I was just kind of like, nah. But I called my best friend at the time, and he didn't answer. But he saved the voicemail that I left. He saved that voicemail for like 5 years, and I wish to God he still had it, man. But that was the first experience that I ever had where I saw any kind of creature. And then again, my mind is blown because I've been in the woods forever, dude, and you see the Gimlin thing, but this thing was gigantic. I mean, easy 8 feet tall. I would have to say at least 8 feet tall. The way I had to look up, and the ease that it stepped over this guardrail going down to the creek. I mean, crazy.
And did you make out facial features at all?
I mean, I can't say, right? Because I can't say, because I don't want to embellish at all, anything at all. Because at that time, nowadays, I would have been focused in on every little detail. But as I'm going at 20, I'm looking at a black bear, right? In my mind, I'm looking at a black bear, and I'm cruise by him and just check him out. This thing stands up on his back legs. And I mean, he was so close when he stood up that even going 25 miles an hour, I was either lock him up or, just kind of try my best to get a good look at him as I went by. So no, I can't say facial features on this at all. All I can say is huge, taller than my truck, black, and real long arms. That's one thing I remember is just long arms. Because when he stood up, his arms just kind of like stayed down where they were, I guess, grasping whatever it was that he was eating on or whatever. But that was the voicemail that I left tells the whole story, right? Like David saved that for years, and he was a believer after that, right? He'd never seen anything at all, but now he believes in Sasquatch because of that experience.
Because of the way you reacted to
my reaction to that, man, and that was leading up to that. How and this has all been within maybe 2 years. I mean, from the first experience that I had until that experience, short time, 2 years, maybe. So
you're like 20 like you're 19, 20 years old.
I was probably 20. I think I was probably 20. I was trying to really get my mind around the chronological order of things. And I was probably 20 years old when that happened. I was older than 19 because at 19, I still hadn't made the real transition and friends that I hadn't crossed the tracks yet.
But that experience didn't feel like a spiritual experience, though. It felt like a real, like you were seeing something standing.
That was full blown, like I happened to cross the one thing while it was eating that one piece of roadkill, this super happenstance, but it was definitely flesh. It wasn't menacing. It wasn't, threatening. It was more like, oh, I got to go. See ya. Well, you get to see me today and bye. But I mean, even then, at that point, I've gotten, 3-4 encounters that have happened to me in that short amount of time. I'm kind of like, well, there's something else. There's another aspect of things.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. That's a lot to take in as a young person. Holy smokes! Right. So you have that experience. That you gotta. Is there any time you're just thinking, can I just be normal, or are you like, what's next?
Well, I'm thinking like I had gone so drastically, consciously decided to put myself in another world that away from what I'd grown up with. I had consciously decided to go away from God, away from any kind of faith, away from the people that cared about me. I'm going to go over here. And so my mental state at that time was just kind of like, look at there. And then I got upset with it for a little while. Like I said, I went back there. I told everybody that I knew. And, a couple of people, like my buddy, he believed me. But you know how it is, man. People just, oh, yeah, sure, da-da-da. Oh, maybe this or that. But yeah, that was the first flesh and blood creature that I saw. And that was an experience for sure. Just the way he made quick work of that guardrail, man, was what blew my mind the most. It's because the guardrail, I mean, if you know what I'm talking about, it's all like,
I know stuff.
The concrete guardrail goes way higher than a normal metal guardrail. And so he just made quick work of that. Just one little step, going down, out of here.
So what's your next encounter then?
So probably 2010, 2011, I was in the relationship that I mentioned, and her uncle had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And from where we lived at the time to where they lived, it was literally that same highway, 41, and you have to go north, and then west. But once you turned off the highway, it was just a bunch of back roads, no street lights. And now it's kind of populated. Now it's developed, but at the time it was not at all. So we had gone over and we had, literally it was like when they went to tell him bye. I mean, it was a sad night. It was it was a very emotional night. It's been raining, and so we're leaving. It's probably 10 o'clock at night. It had been raining. It stopped raining. This is the one that's crazy, man. This is the experience this is the most intense and experience, like physically, that I've had. We're driving, and they were building a new school. I remember this. There was a new school, I think it's an elementary school being built, and this big sweeping curve. And as I come around the curve, I'm kind of looking at the development, just observing it or whatever. And I look, and there's something in the road ahead of us. Like, I got my high beams on, and it's way up there, but my beams are hitting it. And I thought it was a deer at first. And I was like, oh, there's a deer. And as we get closer, I'm kind of like, is that a deer? Is that a coyote? And then I'm starting to think that it's a coyote as I'm getting closer, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm confused, man. Like, I'm super confused because it's the color of a deer, but it's got the body of like a dog. And as we get closer, this thing, I'm probably 50 yards away from it at this point. And the thing running down the white line of the road on the right-hand side, directly in front of me. We start gaining ground on it a little bit more, and it turns and looks at us as it's running away. And it's got a dog snout, and it's got a giant slobbery tongue that just flops out of its mouth as it's looking at us with canine teeth. And the girl that I'm with panics. Dude, she panicked. She freaked. She starts screaming, "What the F is that? What the F is that?" And I'm like, at this point, I'm trying to think, like, is it a coyote that's somewhat deformed? Because as this thing's running, the creature that I'm trying to get in my mind, I'm like going through this deductive stuff. I'm like, what is this thing? And it looks like it has kangaroo legs. It looks like kangaroo legs. And as it's running, it's like a gallop. It's like galloping, hopping, kind of. But man, we stay behind it for a good minute, like a full 60 seconds, right? And every few seconds, this thing will turn around and look at us, and this giant tongue will fly out, and it'll just whip along, and it'll just keep, kind of bounding along. And at that time, I was in a sedan. I was in a 4-door sedan, and the back of this thing was, taller than the hood of the car, right? So it was, it was probably this much taller than the hood of the car at the back, and it wasn't gigantic. It wasn't small, but it wasn't huge like you would hear a typical Dogman story, like some jacked werewolf. It wasn't like that, but it was, the way it was running was just like it was off. Its bottom was definitely way more developed than its top. So anyway, this thing's going ahead of us, and she's panicking, and all of a sudden it literally does what you would not expect at all. It goes to the center of the road, and it sits down in the center of the road and turns and looks at us. Girl's freaking out. This thing, I swear on everything I love, it goes, so we're on a 2-lane road. Right away goes down, goes up about a 5-foot hill on the side of the road, and about a 4-rung barbed wire fence on top of that hill. And this thing is sitting in the middle of the road, man, Shane, with one jump. This thing jumps from the center line and clears that entire right of way from so one full lane, the ditch, the hill that goes up, and the barbed wire fence on top of that hill in one leap, dude. It was gone. It was gone. So we got a good look at this thing. I'm talking about, this wasn't like a fleeting, this thing crossed the road in front of us. No, this thing, I rode behind it as it's galloping, hopping like a kangaroo, coyote, dog for at least a minute, man. I'm talking a solid minute. We were watching this thing, and then it pulls that jump. And so about probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I started getting into, I heard about a Dogman. Someone mentioned to me about a Dogman. So I started looking into interviews, and I started listening to stories, and I listen to podcasts and stuff. And it got me thinking, right? Because if this was a Dogman, it was a juvenile Dogman, and it's not the color that you typically hear. But I have heard a couple of encounters that say, they can make me believe it was a juvenile Dogman. I can't specifically say I remember fingers or hands or anything like that, but it made me want to reach out to her. So, married at that point, I'd gotten married, and so it's kind of a, one of those things I didn't want to be,
yeah.
Trees or whatever. But I messaged her, and I'm like, hey, what do you remember? And she actually remembered a couple of details that I didn't remember, but as a whole, she remembered it spot on, man, like to the T, exactly. But she pointed out that there was like a ridge down this thing's back, where it looked kind of like a Rhodesian ridgeback would have, like the mohawk kind of thing on the spine. And she just, again, talking about the tongue of this thing and how this tongue was just so huge. And if it weren't for the legs and the jump, somebody might be able to say that it was deformed coyote or something like that. But legs, if I was a sketch artist, man, I could have them draw this thing out perfect. But the legs were literally like kangaroo legs.
When you're describing that, like the only real dog that I can picture is like a whippet. You know what a whippet is? Like its back legs, and it would look kind of weird.
We're on the right track.
Yeah.
We're definitely on the right track.
I've never seen a whippet jump.
So a greyhound, right? Kind of like a greyhound.
Greyhound whippets, same thing. Yeah.
Similar kind of along the right line there, but the head of it was different. The head of it was like a definite coyote, German Shepherd kind of head, right? The greyhound will have.
That's way different than a little, because their heads are little, greyhounds and whippets.
Right. Their heads are small. This is definitely a German Shepherd coyote type head with the real long, defined muzzle and the ears that are straight up. Right. So his ears were definitely straight up. And I mean, I've heard a couple of other stories about something that kind of favors a kangaroo that's been seen. But nothing that goes like hand in hand with what, I haven't listened to somebody else's encounter and been like, he saw the same thing. Yeah, I haven't heard it yet. But it's so interesting because the tail on the thing was long too. I mean, it had a nice long tail with hair on it. It wasn't a bald tail. It was like a normal kind of like we have a German Shepherd dog, and it's kind of like a shepherd dog's tail, but just long, super long. But the ridge back and, up around its shoulders, she had mentioned that it looked, kind of like it had thicker hair around its shoulders. I can't necessarily say that for certain because I don't, that doesn't stand out to me. The main thing that stands out to me was just the legs. And when this thing turned, man, just its teeth, it had very big canine teeth, and its tongue was just huge, just flopping in the wind. Skriz, but that was definitely a no doubter that it was something crazy. The way it cleared that lane of traffic and the jump, man, I was blown away. Burned into my mind. If there's a sketch artist out there, man, what sketches?
Yeah, that's the jump is obviously, and I've heard a lot of these creatures do things that you can't imagine a normal animal doing or a normal creature or whatever. And so that's kind of what makes them paranormal, is that it's not normal what they can do. And that obviously, I mean, I wouldn't even know what to think. I mean, that's like that has to be, it almost has to be like watching a cartoon or a video game.
It kind of was, because I consider too, like, you're going through your mind, like, what is this? You're not going to some, or at least I wasn't at the time going to it being some kind of cryptic animal. Like, I'm literally trying to think, like, I'm racking my mind, like going through dog breeds, going through, like, is this a crossbreed from a coyote and some other dog? Is this a kangaroo? Because the way it was running, the way its back legs looked, literally wasn't like a dog. It was like kangaroo legs. I mean, they were, this thing was bounding, and then it put those legs to good use when it jumped over the fence, when it cleared the road. And so I'm just literally trying to look at it logically, like what is it? And didn't even go into any kind of, I mean, I knew it was a weird creature after the fact, sure, right? I'm not, after it happened, and then she and I process it together, and I see how freaked out this girl is, and how, I'm just still trying to give her, like, oh no, it's just this, or oh no, chill out, it's just this, but man, it was bonkers. It was bonkers. And I ended up, like I was telling you, I went back over there and talked to the guy, because it was just a big farm, and it's still, as far as I know, I haven't been there in a long time, but I mean, it's still a big farm. I think I went over there and saw the guy opening the gate. The next day, he was letting some cows across the road, and which is kind of weird. But he said he didn't have a dog like that, because I pulled over and asked him. I was like, hey man, I saw your dog running wild last night, trying to, play it off and see what he said. And I don't have a dog like that. And, so.
Well, have you ever seen a dog like that, man? Come on.
Cows ever ended up like dead?
Yeah, exactly.
But what's interesting is the first creature that I saw on the bridge, from that bridge to where I saw this creature as a crow flies, no more than 2 miles, maybe 3 miles max, if I had to drop a pin. But it was literally right in the same area. I mean, this happened just a little bit southwest of where I saw the first creature. And
which is crazy, because some of the places that you've told me that you've gone out and done stuff, and then these are the places you have experience. Now, did you ever have any experiences out, like in Alaska or any place like that? Or
I mean, I had
all right there in Georgia.
In Georgia, I had an experience where I was hiking looking for a fence line in northern Montana, and I've got a fence stretcher and some barbed wire, and come around like this peninsula, and I'm about 10 yards away from a grizzly bear, raised up, scratching his back on a tree, but nothing paranormal, man. I'm talking about 10 yards away from this thing.
So anybody that was listening and said, "Oh man, he just saw a bear on the bridge,"
yeah,
like when you're 10 yards away from a bear, that it wasn't the same thing.
I'm telling you, this was my mind. Even my mind up until the last second, because as I was driving, that thing is just a big ball of fur. So I'm literally, in my mind, thinking the same thing. Like, that's a black bear. I just can't see its face good. And then it freaking stands up taller than my truck. Yeah, man, no bear. Because if it's a black bear, that sucker's just going to jump up and kind of scoot under the guardrail, or maybe jump the gray part, but it's going to be on four legs.
I don't think a bear would jump over the bridge. I think it would just run. I think it would just run down the bridge.
Right. Yeah, or go to the metal guardrail.
Now I do have from a listener. Okay. They want me to ask you about an experience, so you can imagine who the listener is. It says, make sure to ask Wes about when he was out hunting and something screamed at him.
Oh yeah. This was at my house. This wasn't. I mean, I genuinely think that there's a spot, like a region in Georgia, where if we could all kind of get together and drop pins, I can bet you that there's a triangle.
Yeah.
There's another Georgia triangle for sure. This happened behind my house. We had, let's see, we're going to kind of start with this. We moved up to south of Ellijay in like 2017, I guess. And I had been there about 6 or 8 months, and everything had been cool. Like, we have a bunch of land behind. It's not our land, but permission to hunt. I was in the process of getting permission and introducing myself to folks around and getting access to hunt and to just take the boys out and camp or whatever. And trying to remember like what initially started it. I think it was literally just one night I was out on the deck and I started hearing some sounds, man, like some weird vocalization sounds, and that ended up leading into my wife hearing some stuff, and then we one night have my oldest son at the time, I think he was like 8 years old, maybe 9, comes into the bedroom talking about he heard something hit the side of the house. And I mean, I told you this, and even today, man, like I'm going through pictures from 2018 and I can't find it anywhere. And if I do, I'll send it to you. But I took a picture, and again, it's one of those things where it's like everybody says they got, picture, whatever. But my phone's trying to die a little bit. But it's, I swear, about 8 foot off the ground. It looked like about, a partial handprint in mud right beside my son's window on the back side of the house. So we got, me and a good friend of mine that lives not far away, started getting ballsy, man. And we put out giant Milwaukee Bluetooth speaker, and there's like a road bed that goes down beside our house and carries all the way down, up, down, back to this big creek in the back. So we start blasting these, samurai sounds and Bigfoot calls, right? Just kind of halfway messing around. But one night we get a sound, right? Like this sucker answers us. And it is a no doubter. Like at first I thought that the speaker had been like turned down and we were catching it like through the speaker. And buddy's like, he freaks. We look at the phone's off. Like it's not the speaker. And it's a howl that's coming from way back in the woods. We hear it plain as day. So I'm like, all right, there's something. That guy had house sat for us, and now he like take our dog hike back in the woods. He won't even go back in those woods anymore, just because of that, because of how loud it was, just of how real that was. But we'll say that I'm putting together dates, right? I think that was like late summer. Well, bow season starts in September, so it was probably middle October that time or that year. And I got off work and I'm just going to go hunt, right? I'm just going to jump back in the woods. I'm going to take my climber and I'm just going to go hunt in this spot. I get back there, climb up, picked a poor tree. I'm only about 12 feet off the ground. And it started to get dark pretty quick. And I was on top of a ridge, and this ridge falls down, and there's like a draw that comes down. So there's kind of like, it's a ridge, and then there's kind of like a draw that comes down. So I'm on kind of centered. So there's a draw here and a draw here, and I'm on top of this ridge. And it's like getting to be the perfect time of night. If you deer hunt, you know, the golden hour, or whatever they call it, magic hour. And man, sounds like 10 feet away from me. Literally the only way that I can describe it is literally an air raid horn. Literally an air raid horn goes off, and it was so loud that I mean, man, I'm telling you, man, like I've been in airy scenarios in the woods, plenty. This sound pinned me to this tree to the point where it literally felt like it took every inch of breath out of my lungs, and I was paralyzed, dude. And this sound just kept going. It was probably, 8 seconds of this. It sounded like an air raid horn. And I'm like don't even care what it was, but it's about to be dark and I got to go. And I can't even bring myself to move. I'm talking about I was petrified to this tree. And I ended up getting down and left my stand there and just boogied back to the house. It's bow season. I don't even have my rifle on me. And I got back to the house, and, I was trying to go through again, like, was it a pileated woodpecker? Was it a weird barred owl sound? And nope. And it was just deafening, man. But the frequency and the tone that this thing hit at, I mean, I could feel it in my bones, man, like in my ribs but it pinned me to the tree. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I was frozen in fear. Pure fear.
So whatever it was like, I'll teach you to blast calls into the woods. I'm gonna give it right back to you. Is about what that. Oh, man.
It was crazy. I mean, that was by far. I mean, we had heard stuff in the at night around back, because the creek's about probably 300-400 yards behind the house. I mean, it's back there. But this was literally, I mean, I was only 100 yards behind my house when this happened. And it's like my house sits here, the main draw comes down, goes up, and I was over here on top of this. So, I mean, it was literally right behind my house when that happened. And I've got some pictures that I meant to send you that I'll send you when we're done here. From about that same time of I think it was like 2018 when that happened, 2019 maybe. I've got some interesting pictures that I'll send you that you can take a look at. I mean, 99% confident that I know what it is, but there's something just doesn't feel right about it. And so I'll let you look at it too, and then you see what you think, and you let me know if you want to share or anything. I don't care, but I'll send it. But
so since that time, has everything been kind of quiet, or are you just?
I mean, it's overall it's been quiet. We haven't had an extreme, anything like that happen. Although the eclipse, you saw this about the Northern Lights. Did you see that?
Yeah.
About Northern.
We could see them here. Yeah.
Yeah. We could see them at my house, and they were supposedly going to last for 3 days or something. Like, oh, you missed here, it's going to come back. So, like the third night, it was supposed to happen from 9 p.m. until 3 a.m. or something. I was all in, dude. I'm like, I'm sitting out there, I'm going to see it. And it was the wildest thing. 9:05, everything shut up. The woods are just dead silent. For the whole time, I laid out there on the driveway on a cot, just waiting to see it. Nothing ever really. It just was pitch dark that night. But I stayed out there till like 3 o'clock. But just before 3, I did, since that time until now, was definitely the loudest, most obvious vocalization that I've heard was during the eclipse at like almost 3 o'clock in the morning, just a couple of weeks ago. And it was it was probably 200 yards behind the house. But it was so crazy because it was dead silent. I'm talking about the woods went off or I say the eclipse, not the eclipse, the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like, it was dead silent. And then all of a sudden I'm starting to like kind of doze off, and I'm like, wait a minute, dude, this freaking sound, I can't mimic it. It was a howl, scream sound, but that's the only really the most obvious, crazy one that I've heard in years. But
man, I can't imagine, hearing what some people have recorded. I can't imagine being out there in the driveway on a cot and hear like I'd probably pull a hamstring or tear an Achilles trying to get back in the house. I got to be honest.
Right. Well, I wasn't expecting that, man. I just wanted to see some cool sky. You know what I mean? But when that sounded off, I was out. Yeah, I'm like, all right, I'm going to the porch at least. But what was even crazier, kind of off topic a little bit, but they said that those lights were going to end at 3 o'clock in the morning or something. And it was literally like 3 o'clock, and it's not like a switch flipped on and the whole woods came back to life. And it was the frogs came back, the bugs came back, the coyotes are howling, the dogs are barking. But from like 9 till 3, when they said that event was supposed to take place, it was like dead silent, man. It's wild.
Yeah, it's kind of just like when the eclipse did happen, and the animals started acting like it was nighttime around here. Because where I'm at in Ohio was we got the full eclipse, and as soon as we were all sitting on the back porch, and the birds started acting like it was nighttime. It was crazy. First of all, it dropped like 10 degrees immediately. Like, it was really weird. Like, but I can imagine like the Northern Lights not being something that animals in this part of the country are accustomed to, have to probably have some sort of natural instinctive reaction. Maybe that quiets it down or something. I don't know. So
Something, it was, but yeah, that was that's pretty much the extent of it. I mean, there's a lot of land. So one more thing that I would like to add is the guy that I said won't go into my woods anymore. He lives almost on a line due west from my house, about 12 miles. And I've known him my whole life. I believe him. I've literally known him since we were 7 years old. He's like my best friend. He called me one night, lost his mind. This is like 2:00 in the morning, and tells me that he was out burning a fire and 3 jet black wolves came charging up his hill to the point where he jumps in the bed of his truck, jumps on the cab of his truck, onto the roof of his shed. These wolves come tearing through his property, go, and he lives like he's living the dream, really. It's like the Home Depot shed that he's a single guy, never been married, no kids, no responsibilities. Right on top of this hill. And it's just the hill comes up, it's totally flat, and then it bails right back off. He said they came up, they kind of made a lap around his thing, talking about how they're huge. I'm like, are you sure they're not coyotes? Or, he said, first of all, they're jet black. Second of all, they're huge. Come over tomorrow. So I go over with a tape measure. He tells me that this wolf's back was taller than the rail of his trailer where he was at, right? I pulled a tape. The trailer was 36 inches. And he says that those wolves' backs were taller than that 36 inches. And, just saying it, putting it out there that there was 3 of them, and scared him to the point where he had to jump up on his roof to get away from these things. And this was right outside of Ranger, Georgia. And, it's like, I've known the dude forever. He knows what a coyote is. He knows what a black lab is. I'm trying to, what could you actually mistake for something like that? I mean, the back of this thing's 36 inches or more. That's huge, man.
That's pretty good size. Yeah, I mean, if you're jumping up on top of your the roof of your shed,
yeah.
I mean, you're not doing that for just a dog.
No.
You should be able to jump up on the back of your truck if you were scared of a dog and get away. Wow.
But I'm telling you, it's just a weird thing, man. There's a certain region in Georgia that I guarantee you 90% of all Georgia encounters come from this area, and
well, we have a lot of Georgia listeners, and I'll be curious to see what they think, they think, especially here in some of the towns and some of the areas, to see what they themselves have experienced or know of in that area. Yeah. Well, Wes, I'm glad that you decided to talk to Travis, and he was smart enough to hook us up, because I appreciate you coming on and sharing these experiences. I think these are fantastic, and I hope everybody gets to listen to all of them. And maybe there's some other eyewitnesses out there that share some of your experiences that'll come forward.
I'm really curious, man. That's one thing I've really been hesitant to talk about it a lot. And then I get to thinking too, every time I hear an encounter, if they say Georgia, man, I'm perked up. So I'm really curious, what kind of feedback we get, man. I'm curious for sure. Because I know that just on Facebook groups and other small little outlets. There's plenty in our area that have had plenty of encounters, and I'm just curious what kind of.
Yep. And I promise everybody that's watching, by the next episode, I will get the light bulb changed in my wife's office so that I'm not sitting in the dark by the end of the episode.
Man,
I feel like I'm the, like in oh gosh, the magic mirror. Like I'm the face coming in. Mirror, mirror on the wall. I feel like. All right. Well, hey, thanks again for sharing, and and hopefully the rest of your vacation's good.
Yeah, I know, right? That'll be nice. It's finally starting. But yeah, man, thanks for having me, man. I really enjoyed talking with you.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.